Welcome to section 1 of buying a home, renting versus buying. One of the largest decisions you will make in your entire life is whether you should buy a home or not buy a home. And actually, before I go into that part, everyone should have a home, right? But not necessarily everyone needs a house, okay? We don't all need to buy houses. Not everyone's going to want to do that. And so that's one of the things we'll discuss in here is should you buy or should you not. But everyone needs a home, and a home is a place where your family, you live there. I mean, it's different than necessarily the shell that surrounds your home. Okay, so renting. There's advantages to renting, and what are they? So one of them is mobility, right? It's easy to move. If you need to pick up, you get a job change, or you just don't like the area and you want to move, it's easy to do that. You just tell the landlord, I want to move. 30 days later, you're out. Okay, so pretty easy to move. Some other advantages are there's no cost for repair or maintenance. Okay, so if your water heater goes out, or if the kitchen stove goes out, or anything breaks, basically, you just call the landlord and say, hey, I need this fixed, and they'll fix it for you. So there's no maintenance. You don't have to worry about that. Your financial commitments are lower than it would be on buying a home, right? You don't have to come in with a down payment when you rent, right? You don't have to pay closing costs. Those things, you just pay your rent, monthly rent, and you're good. Okay, pretty easy. Lastly, rent is easier to budget, so you don't have to worry about taxes or insurance or anything like that. Your rent's $900 a month, and so you budget $900 a month. You don't have to worry about, again, repairs and other things that you would have to budget for. It's pretty easy. It's just all there. Okay. Are there disadvantages to renting? Of course. And what are they? Number one is lack of stability. You're not tied to that area. Okay. You could have to move. I remember hearing about a story, actually several stories of people that lived in a home, were paying rent on time, and all of a sudden the bank comes in and forecloses on them. And again, it wasn't their fault. They were paying their rent, but it turns out the guy they were paying their rent to had decided to not make his payments and just have the house get foreclosed on, and so he was pocketing that money, and now they have to move. Through no fault of their own, they have to move. So that's obviously something you can't control as a renter. Lack of pride that comes from ownership. So I've rented, I've owned homes, and I know that when I own a home, I take care of it a lot more than I do if I was renting it. Even though a lot of times I have good intentions when I rent, I want to take care of this, I want to, weed the thing around the house and stuff like that. At the end of the day, I'm like, I don't own the house, it's not mine, and so I don't care, and that's just what happens. So that's obviously a disadvantage. There's no pride of ownership. You can't modify a rental house. You can hang pictures, of course, but you can't paint the walls. You can't renovate the kitchen. You can't, change anything about the house. I mean, the house is the landlord's, and so you get to live in it. Rents may increase unexpectedly, so every year the landlord may choose to raise your rent, and it's up to you if you want to keep that rent payment or move out and find a different place. You also, lastly, miss out on the tax benefits, right? So if you do not own a house, you don't get to itemize your deductions and use that interest that you can use as a tax write-off. So none of that is available. What are some advantages of buying? Okay. Obviously, many of the disadvantages of renting are the advantages of buying. Number one is pride of ownership and permanence. Okay, so you buy a home, you're probably going to stay in that neighborhood for a long time. Your kids will know their friends in that neighborhood. You'll have good friends that you'll bond and live there for a long time, most likely. Obviously, the pride of ownership too. You're going to want to mow your lawn. You're going to want to take care of your house. If something breaks, you're going to want to fix it because you know you're going to be in there long term, and so you're going to want to take care of it. There's also obviously, you don't have to worry about the monthly payment changing, right? So that's not going to fluctuate or anything like that. If you do a 30-year fixed loan, your payment's X amount of dollars every month. Doesn't change. You don't have to worry about that. Another advantage is that you get Uncle Sam's help on making your payments, right? Again, you can itemize your deductions, and as of today, interest on your mortgage is tax deductible, so you can write off that interest payment that you're making every month. Another advantage to owning a home is that you can borrow against the equity in your home. So the equity is just the difference between what your home is worth and what you owe on the home. So if you owe 180 and your home's worth 200, that $20,000 is what is your equity, okay? And that's your money, but it's tied up in the home. And so a lot of times if you need to access that, you can get a home equity line of credit, or you can refinance your mortgage altogether and pull out cash, and that's something you're able to get at, and it's typically at a lower interest rate because it's tied to your home, as opposed to a credit card that's not tied to anything, right? They can't come after your house or anything like that. It's just money there's no collateral, okay? What are some disadvantages of buying a home? Number one, mobility is low. If you buy a home, you're most likely there for a little while. And if you do want to move, it's expensive to move, right? You have to pay a realtor to sell your home. You have to pay closing costs. It's not cheap. You can't just give 30 days notice and leave, right? You have to do all these different things to get out of the house, and so that can be expensive. Not always something you want to do. In fact, so another disadvantage to buying a home is that, let's say you pay $200 for the home, and the next year the home's worth $190, right? Now you've lost $10,000 on the home you did, and that obviously is a very real thing. Having lived through 2007 to 2010, values were decreasing, and that's a very real thing. And so you have to consider that when you're buying a home. Is the home going to go up or down, and do I care? If I'm going to be here for 30 years, then maybe I don't care. I'm just going to live there. It's okay. I'm not thinking about it from a financial standpoint. I'm thinking about it. I want to live in this home. That's the way it is. Okay. And going back to mobility, it is obviously a lot harder to leave a home when you're upside down. Right? I have a lot of friends that were stuck in homes they couldn't get out of because they owed more than their home was worth. Obviously, it's hard to sell a home at that point. Some other disadvantages is the upfront costs, right? You have to come in with a down payment, most likely. There are 100% down payment or 100% loans, and we'll talk about that later on and stuff like that. But typically, you'll have a down payment. You're going to have closing costs, things like that. So, cost for repairs. So if the water heater breaks, appliances go out, different things like that, you have to fix that. You're the landlord. You're the owner. Okay, you have to fix those things. And I already went over that. So those are some disadvantages to buying a home. Okay, I want to leave you with this quote. This is from a president of the LDS Church. I think he phrased this very well. He says, "We have been counseled again and again concerning self-reliance, concerning debt, concerning thrift. When I was a young man, my father counseled me to build a modest home, sufficient for the needs of my family, and make it beautiful, attractive, pleasant, and secure. He counseled me to pay off the mortgage as quickly as I could, so that, come what may, there would be a roof over the heads of my wife and children. I was reared on that kind of doctrine." He then goes on to say that I recognize that it may be necessary to borrow to get a home, of course, but let us buy a home that we can afford, and thus ease the payments, which will constantly hang over our heads without mercy or respite for as long as 30 years. I urge you to be modest in your expenditures. Discipline yourselves in your purchases to avoid debt to the extent possible. Pay off debt as quickly as you can. That's all I have to say about it, but I wish to say it with all the emphasis of which I am capable. I've been doing loans for a long time. I've seen a lot of people buy homes that are maybe more than they can. Technically, we can qualify them, right? I could probably qualify you for more than what you can afford, and those people have taken advantage of that. So hey, we want to buy this really nice house, a dream house, and maybe we're 2 years behind when we should have bought this, but they buy it now, and so they're house poor for a little while. It's important to make sure you're buying what feels comfortable, and realize, hey, you might want to have vacations, you might want to buy a car, you might want to send your kids to piano lessons. There's things you want to do, okay? And so don't be house poor. Make sure you're buying a home that's that fits your budget, okay? Thank you.